Hello everyone, Jules here. Today I'd like to talk about another great book about Freemasonry for people who would like to know more. So the book I'm going to talk about today is called Stellar Theology and Masonic Astronomy, and this book is written by Robert Hewitt Brown, who was actually a long-term high-ranking Mason, and this is a classic book. This book actually dates back to the 1880s, so this is a kind of a revised edition of the original, but it's quite an important book. It's a classic book, but it's also easy to read, which is kind of surprising, because I think a lot of books that were written around the late 1800s can sometimes be a little bit difficult to read. They can be a little bit dense because of the type of language that might be used. But this is quite clearly written, which is really good, really useful. So what this book is actually about, the term Masonic astronomy, it's actually to do with the symbolism of Freemasonry, but also about what is really to do with the astronomy or star law. And by star law, this is to do with the fixed stars, and it's also to do with a kind of solar allegory, which is really the basis of a lot of the mythology behind Freemasonry. So Robert Hewitt Brown wrote this book for Masons, for practicing Masons, but because it's such a classic, that's why it's been reissued and republished, so that for anyone interested in Masonry can read this book and find out a lot of information about the symbolism of Freemasonry, as well as the basis of the ideas and the rituals. So I'm going to give you an idea of what's in this book. There's quite a lot of black and white illustrations in here, which I think people will really like that. So, for example, here's one of the typical type of illustrations that are in this book. So this book is actually, this particular diagram is all about the solar year and the passage of the sun through the months and the signs, the star signs. But it's particularly to do with the solar equinoxes, and the solstices. And that particularly interests me because for a long time now I have worked and followed the solar year. So this is really useful to me. So what is known as the general 4 seasons are all based on the 2 equinoxes and the 2 solstices of the annual year. So I really like that. So I'll just give you an idea of what's in this book. It's divided into 3 parts, and about 2/3 of the book is in a Q&A format. I know quite a lot of people like that idea of the Q&A. It's quite well done. I normally am not that big a fan on the Q&A format, but I do like the way this has been done. It's really quite easy to read, and I like it. And so just to give you an idea of the topics that are in the book. So for example, the first part of the book, the part 1, this first part of the book also talks a lot about the ancient mysteries, which are the Eleusinian mysteries of the ancient Greeks. So for people who aren't aware about that, there were very formalized rituals and initiations that were connected and all to do with the ancient mysteries of the ancient Greeks. And the book starts off talking about that because the author has made a connection not only to do with the solar allegory of the year, but the rituals and initiations of the ancient mysteries have got quite a connection and relevance to the rituals and initiations of Freemasonry. So it's really good that the book starts off talking all about the background to the ancient mysteries of the ancient Greeks and what that was about. Then it goes on to the signs of the zodiac and the solstice points of the year and the equinox points of the year. And it talks about the ancient view of astronomy. Now, I will say here too that in this book, the term astronomy and astrology are almost used in an interchangeable way, and they're not the same. They're not quite the same thing. But just keep that in mind when you're reading the book, because a lot of people do get confused between astronomy and astrology a lot, even now, normally anyway. So part 2 is when the Q&A format starts. So it starts by talking about the Masonic journey, astronomy and geometry, Masonic words and names, King Solomon's Temple, and Hiram Abiff, who is quite an important figure in Freemasonry. Then it starts to talk about the solar allegory, and this is my favourite part of the book, because it talks about the allegory of the death and resurrection of the sun. By resurrection, of course, we mean the rising of the sun. This is my favourite part of the book because it actually sets out the allegory itself. It's very interesting to read. It's really great to read. So you've got part 1 of the Masonic allegory of the sun, which part 1 is called the death of the sun. Then you have the raising of Osiris. Now this is really interesting too, which is called the resurrection of the sun or the rising of the sun. Osiris was a very important Egyptian god who was a resurrection god. So the author ties this in very much with Egyptian myths as well. So that's very interesting. And then there's part 2, of the Masonic allegory, which is the final part of the resurrection of the sun, which I like to call the rising of the sun. But anyway, then you go into part 3. And part 3 is this is still Q&A format, extended again. So you may as well say part 2 and part 3 is all Q&A format. So part 3 goes into symbols and legends of the mysteries, both ancient and modern. And it talks about the seven stars in particular, and the ladder of 7 rounds. So this is all very important to Freemasonry. And the Masonic ladder of 3 rounds. Now, all of this is explained in the book. It talks about the astrological ladder. Sometimes that's known as the planetary ladder. Masonic festivals, the all-seeing eye. That is quite a well-known symbol of Freemasonry. Masonic signs, the letter G. Now, a lot of people think it probably stands for geometry. It does in a way. So the letter G, the compass. Then it goes into some more symbolism, the checkered floor, the pillars, the coffin. The coffin is very much to do with initiation ritual, and the keystone. There's so many things in this book. It's really worth getting because it's not difficult to read. I think a lot of people will like this book for that reason. It goes into a particular thing that I really like because a lot of people will recognise this from particular cards of the tarot, for example, like the wheel and the world card, which is the lion, the eagle, the ox and the man. They are all related to 4 fixed stars. And then you also have the antiquity of Masonry, which is, I think, what all this book is particularly about, really. The antiquity. The antiquity of Masonry. What it's actually really and truly based on. There's an index in the back of the book. A list of illustrations. Robert Hewitt Brown. Like I said, this is an absolute classic. For people who want to know more, a lot more about Freemasonry, symbolism, and how it ties in with star myth, star lore, and the solar allegory of the year. I really do think this book is really worth getting, because I think not only all the different concepts and ideas that are covered in this book, but the way that it's written in a very informative but a very practical way. So that, like I said, this is I think quite easy to read, and I think that's useful for people who want a really good foundational background to Freemasonry, with the symbols and the rituals and how it ties into the ancient mysteries and ancient ideas. So I think this is a great book, and I just wanted to talk about this today and show this today for people who would like to know more about Freemasonry and would like a book that's quite accessible for you to read. So I'll put some details below the video for this book, Stellar Theology and Masonic Astronomy by Robert Hewitt Brown. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.